Give me access, now, Danika demanded, her fingers poised over the laptop as a malicious code threatened to destroy everything. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments and tell us, can one moment of kindness rewrite someone's destiny? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest stories of triumph and heart. In this tale, a brilliant black programmer faces rejection and racism, only to find herself in a high-stakes race against a deadly cyber attack. Will her genius save the day? And what secrets lie behind the code she's fighting? Join us to uncover a journey of courage, love, and justice that starts in a rain-soaked city. Share your thoughts below, smash that like button, and let's dive in. Will Danika's story surprise you? Stay tuned to find out. The city wept under a relentless downpour, its streets awash with rivers of rain that blurred the neon glow of signs and drowned the hum of urban life. Danika strode through the deluge, her ebony skin glistening under the wet sheen, her long, silken black hair clinging to her shoulders like a sodden veil. She was a vision of elegance despite the storm, her white blouse crisp, her black pencil skirt hugging her curves, and her high-heeled black pumps clicking defiantly against the slick pavement. But beneath the poised exterior, her heart was a battlefield, torn between hope and humiliation. Today was supposed to be her triumph. Danika, a programmer whose mind danced with algorithms as effortlessly as a poet with words, had walked into the glass and steel fortress of NexusTech, a titan in the tech world. She'd spent weeks preparing, her resume a tapestry of projects that had pushed boundaries, apps that streamlined lives, code that outsmarted threats. She believed her talent could propel NexusTech to new heights. Her reflection in the polished lobby mirrors had shown a woman ready to conquer, confident, radiant, unstoppable. But the interview room was a different world. The man across the desk, Mr. Hargrove, wore a suit as stiff as his demeanor. His eyes, cold and gray as the storm outside, flicked over her resume with disinterest. "So, Ms. Carter," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "you coded this encryption protocol yourself?" Danika nodded, her smile bright. "Yes, sir. It reduced breach risks by 40% in testing." Hargrove's lips twitched, not in approval, but in something darker. "Impressive," he said, though the word felt like a slap. "But tell me, do you think you'd fit in here? Our culture is, well, particular." The air grew heavy. Danika's stomach tightened, but she held her ground. "I'm adaptable, Mr. Hargrove. My work speaks for itself." He leaned back, his gaze lingering on her skin, her hair, her very presence. "Adaptable," he repeated as if tasting the word. "We'll see. Diversity is, tricky, you know. Not everyone blends seamlessly." The words landed like a blade, slicing through her confidence. The rest of the interview was a blur, perfunctory questions, half-hearted scribbles on his notepad, and a final dismissive, "We'll be in touch." Danika knew what that meant. She wouldn't be hired. Not because her code wasn't flawless, not because her ideas weren't groundbreaking, but because her skin was too dark for their culture. She left the building with her head high, but the moment the glass doors closed behind her, the weight of rejection crushed her. The rain began to fall harder, as if the sky itself mourned her shattered dreams. She walked, oblivious to the cold seeping through her blouse, the water pooling in her shoes. Each step was a battle. Her heels bit into her feet, the pain a cruel echo of the ache in her chest. She'd faced prejudice before, but this was different. This was her dream job, her chance to prove she belonged among the best. Now it was gone, stolen by a man who saw her color before her genius. Tears welled, hot and unstoppable, mingling with the rain. She let them fall, her sobs swallowed by the storm's roar. The city around her was a ghost town, its vibrancy dulled by the deluge. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that danced like specters. Danika's mind replayed Hargrove's words, each syllable a fresh wound. Not everyone blends seamlessly. She wanted to scream, to demand why her talent wasn't enough, but the world didn't answer. It just rained. Her apartment was miles away, and the thought of trudging through the storm felt insurmountable. Her feet throbbed. the high heels now instruments of torture. She paused under a flickering street lamp, her breath hitching as she wiped rain and tears from her face. The crumpled resume in her bag felt like a mockery, its ink likely smeared beyond recognition. What was the point? She'd poured her soul into this chance and it had spat her out. Then through the haze of rain and despair, headlights pierced the darkness. A sleek black car slowed, its tires hissing against the wet asphalt. Danika froze, her instincts prickling. The window rolled down, revealing a man with sharp features and eyes the color of a summer sea. "Miss, please, get in," he called, his voice warm but urgent. "It's pouring. You'll get sick out there." Danika hesitated, her hand tightening on her bag. Strangers in cars didn't exactly scream safety, but the man's expression held no threat, only concern. His suit was tailored, his demeanor calm yet insistent. Another gust of wind whipped through her, chilling her to the bone, and her resolve crumbled. She couldn't walk another step. "Okay," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the rain. She opened the door and slid into the passenger seat, the leather cool against her soaked clothes. The warmth of the car enveloped her, a stark contrast to the storm outside. The man glanced at her, his brow furrowed. "I'm Liam," he said, offering a small smile. "Where are you headed?" Danika murmured her address, her gaze fixed on the rain-streaked window. She didn't want to talk, didn't want to explain the tears still clinging to her lashes. Liam nodded, sensing her reluctance. "Let's get you home," he said, easing the car back onto the road. The wipers slashed rhythmically, a steady counterpoint to the chaos in Danika's heart. She stole a glance at him, his hands steady on the wheel, his focus on the road. Something was grounding about him, something that made her feel, for the first time that day, like she wasn't entirely alone. The city blurred past, its lights smeared into streaks of gold and red. Danika's mind churned, replaying the interview, the rain, the cruelty of a world that judged her before knowing her. She didn't notice Liam's occasional glances, his quiet concern. She didn't know that this moment, this chance encounter, was the first thread in a tapestry that would change her life. For now she was just a woman in a storm, broken but unbroken, carried forward by a stranger's kindness. The interior of Liam's car was a cocoon of warmth, a stark rebellion against the storm raging outside. Danika sank into the leather seat, her soaked blouse clinging to her skin, her high heels leaving small puddles on the floor mat. The rhythmic thump of windshield wipers battled the rain's relentless assault, filling the silence with a steady pulse. She stared out the window, where the city's lights bled into smears of gold and crimson, her reflection a ghost in the glass. Haunted, hollow, still reeling from the day's cruelty. Her tears had dried, but the ache in her chest lingered, heavy as the rain-soaked air. Liam, behind the wheel, exuded a quiet authority. His tailored suit, damp at the cuffs from his brief venture into the storm, spoke of a man accustomed to control, yet his eyes held a gentleness that disarmed her. He glanced at her, his gaze lingering just long enough to register her distress. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, threaded with genuine concern. Danika nodded faintly, her throat too tight for words. She didn't trust herself to speak without unraveling, so she let the rain answer for her, its drumbeat on the roof a shield against conversation. He didn't press. Instead, he eased the car through the flooded streets, navigating puddles that shimmered like liquid mirrors under streetlights. The city was a labyrinth of shadows, its vibrancy muted by the deluge. Danika's mind churned, replaying the interview's sting, Hargrove's sneer, his veiled disdain for her skin. She clutched her bag, the crumpled resume inside a bitter reminder of her dashed hopes. The warmth of the car was a small mercy, but it couldn't thaw the cold knot of defeat in her core. Liam broke the silence, his tone careful, like a man stepping across a fragile bridge. "Rough day, huh?" he said, keeping his eyes on the road. Danika's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You could say that," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't elaborate, and he didn't pry. There was something about his restraint, his willingness to let her be, that made her feel seen, not as a victim, but as a person. For the first time that day, she felt a flicker of safety, fleeting but real. The car hummed along, the engine's purr a counterpoint to the storm's chaos. Liam's hands were steady on the wheel, his focus unwavering, yet Danika sensed he was attuned to her, his silence a kind of listening. She stole a glance at him, his jaw sharp, his brow slightly furrowed, his dark hair catching the faint glow of passing lights. He was handsome, she noted absently, but it was his presence that struck her, a quiet strength that seemed to anchor the moment. They'd gone only a few blocks when a sharp trill shattered the calm. Liam's phone, nestled in the console, lit up with an insistent buzz. He frowned, glancing at the screen, and his expression darkened. "Sorry, I have to take this," he said, his voice clipped. He tapped the device and a frantic voice crackled through the speaker. "Liam, it's bad. The system's under attack. Some kind of malware. It's encrypting everything. We're losing data fast." Danika's ears pricked, her programmer's instincts stirring despite her exhaustion. Liam's posture stiffened, his calm unraveling. "Now?" he snapped, his tone laced with urgency. "What kind? Can the team isolate it?" The voice on the other end faltered. We don't know. It's unlike anything we've seen. The firewalls are useless. We need you, Liam, now." He swore under his breath, pulling the car to the curb with a jolt. The rain hammered the roof, louder now, as if echoing the crisis. Liam reached for a sleek laptop from the back seat, his movements swift but precise. He flipped it open, the screen's blue glow illuminating his face, casting sharp shadows across his features. Lines of code scrolled frantically, a digital battlefield where chaos reigned. Danika leaned forward, her curiosity overriding her despair. The screen was a war zone, data streams collapsing, encryption locks snapping shut like traps. Liam's fingers hovered over the keys, his brow creased with concentration. "This isn't right," he muttered, his voice taut. "The code's moving too fast. It's, adaptive. I've never seen anything like it." His eyes darted across the screen, searching for a foothold, but the malware was a hydra, sprouting new heads with every attempt to strike it down. Danika's heart quickened. She knew this dance, the thrill and terror of facing an unseen enemy in the digital deep. She shouldn't interfere. This wasn't her fight. She was just a passenger, a stranger in a storm. But the code called to her, its patterns whispering secrets only she could hear. She shifted in her seat, her gaze locked on the screen. Liam noticed, his eyes flicking to her. "You know something about this?" he asked, half skeptical, half hopeful. Danika hesitated, her instinct to retreat warring with the fire in her veins. She was tired, broken, but she was still Danika Carter, the woman who'd coded her way through impossible problems. "Maybe," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm a programmer. Let me take a look." Liam's brow arched, but he didn't hesitate. He angled the laptop toward her, the screen's glow bathing her face. Danika's fingers brushed the keys, a spark igniting in her chest. For the first time that day, she felt alive, tethered to something she understood. The code was a puzzle, a beast she could tame. She didn't know who Liam was, what his company did, or why this attack mattered. But she knew this. She could fight back. The rain roared on, the city a distant murmur beyond the car's walls. Danika's world narrowed to the screen, to the lines of malicious code weaving their destruction. Liam watched, his breath shallow, as this woman, drenched, defeated, yet fiercely focused, stopped into the fray. Neither of them knew it yet, but this moment, this collision of chance and crisis, was the spark that would set their futures ablaze. The rain pounded the roof of Liam's car like a war drum, its relentless rhythm a counterpoint to the chaos unfolding on the laptop screen. Inside, the air was thick with tension, the glow of the monitor casting sharp shadows across Danika's face. Her fingers hovered over the keys, poised like a conductor before a symphony of code. The malware was a beast, its tendrils weaving through the system, encrypting data with ruthless precision. Danika's heart raced, not with fear, but with the electric thrill of a challenge she was born to meet. She was no longer the woman broken by rejection. She was a warrior, and this digital battlefield was her domain. Liam sat beside her, his breath shallow, his eyes darting between the screen and the woman who'd transformed from a drenched stranger into a force of nature. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice a mix of doubt and hope. Danika didn't look up. "Give me access, now," she said, her tone sharp, commanding. Liam hesitated for a heartbeat, then typed a string of credentials, granting her full control. The screen flared with new data, and Danika dove in, her fingers flying across the keyboard with a speed that bordered on artistry. The code was a labyrinth, a tangle of malicious intent designed to evade detection. It morphed as she probed, rewriting itself to counter her moves. But Danika was relentless. Her mind, honed by years of outsmarting systems, saw patterns where others saw chaos. She traced the malware's pathways, her eyes narrowing as she spotted a faint signature, a subtle quirk in the code structure. "Clever," she muttered, her voice low, almost reverent, "but not clever enough." Outside, the storm raged, lightning splitting the sky, its flash briefly illuminating the car's interior. Danika didn't flinch. Her world was the screen, the code, the puzzle. She isolated a fragment of the malware, sandboxing it to study its behavior. Lines of text scrolled furiously, a digital duel unfolding in real time. Liam leaned closer, his skepticism giving way to awe. "What are you doing?" he whispered, as if speaking too loudly might break her spell. "Dissecting it," Danika replied, her fingers never slowing. "It's adaptive, but it has a core, a command node. If I can find it, I can kill it." Her voice was steady, but her pulse thrummed with adrenaline. She navigated the system's architecture, bypassing decoys and traps. The malware fought back, locking files faster than she could unlock them. For a moment, doubt flickered. Could she do this? Then she thought of Hargrove's sneer, the interview that had tried to erase her. No, she was Danika Carter, and she would not be defeated. Minutes ticked by, each second a lifetime. Liam's phone buzzed again, the frantic voice from earlier, now near panic. "Liam, we're losing the servers. Clients are calling." Liam cut the call, his eyes fixed on Danika. "She's got this," he said, more to himself than to anyone else. Danika barely heard him. She'd found it, the node, buried deep in a subroutine, pulsing like a heart. "Got you," she breathed, her fingers unleashing a counterattack. She injected a custom script, one she'd written years ago for a similar threat, tweaking it on the fly to match the malware's mutations. The screen froze, then erupted in a cascade of alerts. The encryption halted, and files unlocked one by one. Danika didn't stop. She dug deeper, following the malware's trail to its origin. A hidden packet, embedded in the code, revealed a digital fingerprint, a server address, a timestamp, a trace of intent. "This wasn't random," she said, her voice hard. "Someone targeted your system. I've got their trail." She saved the evidence to a secure file, her hands trembling not from fear, but from the rush of victory. Liam stared, mouth slightly agape. The screen now showed a stable system, the malware neutralized, the data preserved. In 20 minutes, Danika had done what his entire team couldn't. "Who are you?" he asked, his tone half laughter, half reverence. Danika leaned back, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her blouse was still damp, her hair a mess, but her eyes burned with a fire that hadn't been there an hour ago. "Just a programmer," she said, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "One who got rejected today because of my skin." The words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Liam's face softened, a flicker of anger crossing his features. Not at her, but at the injustice she'd faced. He shook his head as if trying to reconcile the woman before him with the cruelty of her day. "They were fools," he said quietly. "You're not just a programmer. You're a genius." Danika's smile faltered, the weight of his words sinking in. For the first time that day, she felt seen, not for her color, but for her mind. Liam closed the laptop, the screen's glow fading, leaving only the storm's dim light. "My company," he said, his voice earnest. "We build security software. We fight threats like this every day. But I've never seen anyone handle code like you just did. We need you, Danika. Will you join us?" The offer was sudden, almost surreal, yet it carried a sincerity that pierced her defenses. Danika blinked, her mind racing. A job, a chance, not a handout, but a recognition of her worth. She looked at him, at the man who'd pulled her from the rain, who'd trusted her with his company's lifeblood. The storm outside seemed to quiet, as if holding its breath. She started, her voice catching. Yes, I'll join you. The words felt like a lifeline, pulling her from the abyss of the day's failures. Liam's face broke into a grin, relief and admiration mingling in his eyes. Tomorrow then, he said, come to our office. We'll make it official. Danika nodded, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. The car was still, the rain a soft murmur now. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know that this moment was the hinge on which her future would turn. For now she was content to sit in the warmth, her talent finally heard, her spirit rekindled by a stranger's faith. The hum of computers filled the open-plan office of CyberGuard, Liam's tech startup, where glass walls reflected the city's skyline and ambition pulsed in every keystroke. Danika stood at the heart of it, her presence a quiet storm. Her desk was a fortress of monitors, each screen alive with code she'd crafted to shield the company's clients from digital predators. In the weeks since that rain-soaked night, she'd transformed from a stranger in despair to the linchpin of CyberGuard's defense. Her brilliance wasn't just a spark, it was a blaze, and the team revered her for it. Yet as she typed, her mind wandered to Liam, whose office door stood ajar, his silhouette a constant in her peripheral vision. Danika had joined CyberGuard the day after her encounter with Liam, stepping into a world that welcomed her talent without question. She'd expected skepticism, braced for the subtle slights she'd endured at NexusTech. Instead, she found respect. Her first project, a firewall overhaul, had slashed breach attempts by half, earning her a standing ovation from the team. But it was Liam's quiet nods, his eyes catching hers across the room, that anchored her. He was no longer just the man who'd pulled her from the rain. He was a partner, a visionary whose belief in her had rewritten her story. Their connection deepened in stolen moments. Late nights debugging code turned into conversations that stretched past midnight. Over takeout containers and cooling coffee, they shared fragments of their lives. Danika's childhood dreams of coding, Liam's relentless climb to build CyberGuard from nothing. His laughter, warm and unguarded, chipped away at the walls she'd built around her heart. She noticed the way his hand lingered when passing her a pen, the way his gaze softened when she spoke. Danika, who'd learned to guard herself against a world that judged her skin, felt her defenses crumble. She was falling, and so was he. One evening, as the office emptied and the city glittered beyond the windows, Liam leaned against her desk. "You've changed this place, Danika," he said, his voice low, intimate. "Not just the code, the energy, me." Her breath caught, her fingers pausing on the keyboard. She met his eyes, sea green and earnest, and saw something raw, vulnerability, desire, truth. "You gave me a chance," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "That changed me." Their first kiss was tentative, a question answered in the quiet of the office, sealing a bond forged in trust. Their romance bloomed alongside CyberGuard's growth, but a shadow loomed. The malware Danika had neutralized that stormy night wasn't a random attack. The digital fingerprint she'd uncovered, a server address, a coded signature, pointed to a deliberate act of sabotage. Liam had sent the evidence to the authorities, and weeks later, a detective's call confirmed their suspicions. The attack originated from NexusTech, the same company that had rejected Danika with sneers and prejudice. They hadn't just dismissed her, they tried to destroy their rival by planting the malware, a desperate bid to cripple CyberGuard's rise. The revelation hit Danika like a blow. She remembered Hargrove's cold eyes, his words that had cut deeper than she'd admitted. NexusTech's malice wasn't just personal, it was criminal. Liam, his jaw tight with fury, vowed to hold them accountable. "They don't get to do this," he said, his hand squeezing hers. "Not to you, not to us." Danika nodded, her resolve hardening. This wasn't just about CyberGuard's survival. It was about justice, about proving that her talent could dismantle the very system that had tried to erase her. The legal battle was a tempest. Liam and Danika worked with prosecutors, building a case that wove together the malware's code, server logs, and Danika's testimony. She spent nights poring over data, her eyes burning but her spirit unyielding. The courtroom loomed like a coliseum, and when the day arrived, Danika stepped inside with her head high, her dark skin glowing under the fluorescent lights. She wore a tailored blazer, her hair a cascade of silk, her presence commanding silence. On the stand, she faced Hargrove, whose smirk faltered under her steady gaze. "Ms. Carter," the prosecutor began, "tell us about the interview at NexusTech." Danika's voice was clear, unwavering, as she recounted the humiliation, dismissive questions, the veiled racism, the rejection that had nothing to do with her skills. Then she described the malware, her discovery of its origins, and the digital trail that led back to NexusTech. "They didn't just reject me," she said, her eyes locking on Hargrove. "They tried to destroy a competitor because they couldn't compete fairly." The courtroom was still, the weight of her words sinking in. Liam, seated in the gallery, watched her with pride that bordered on reverence. The evidence was damning. Server records, internal emails, the malware's unique signature. NexusTech's defense crumbled, and their executives were exposed as orchestrators of a scheme driven by greed and prejudice. The judge's gavel fell, convicting the company on charges of cybercrime and fraud. Fines were levied, reputations shattered, and Hargrove's career lay in ruins. As they left the courthouse, the sky was clear, the storm of that fateful night a distant memory. Danika felt lighter, as if the weight of her past had lifted. Liam took her hand, his touch a promise. "You did it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You turned their hate into justice." Danika smiled, her heart full. "We did it," she corrected, squeezing his hand. The victory wasn't just hers, it was theirs, a testament to the bond they'd built. That night, they stood on CyberGuard's rooftop, the city sprawling beneath them like a sea of stars. Liam pulled her close, his breath warm against her cheek. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. Danika leaned into him, her heart steady. She'd faced a world that tried to break her and emerged stronger, loved and whole. The fight was over, but their story was just beginning. The city shimmered below, a tapestry of lights woven into the velvet night. Danika stood at the edge of a candlelit table in a quaint restaurant tucked into a quiet corner of the urban sprawl. The air was warm, scented with rosemary and wine, and the soft glow of lanterns bathed her in a radiance that made her seem almost ethereal. Her dark skin glowed, her long black hair cascaded in glossy waves, and her eyes, fierce, brilliant eyes, sparkled with a joy she hadn't known she could feel. She wore a simple yet elegant dress, its deep sapphire hue a nod to the strength she'd reclaimed. Across from her sat Liam, his sea-green eyes fixed on her, a smile playing at his lips that held both mischief and reverence. The past months had been a whirlwind, a symphony of triumphs that had reshaped their lives. CyberGuard, once a scrappy startup, had soared under their combined leadership. Danika's innovations, new encryption protocols, AI-driven threat detection, had made the company a beacon in the tech world, its name synonymous with trust. Liam's strategic vision, paired with her technical genius, had turned their office into a hive of creativity, where every coder, regardless of background, was valued. They'd built more than a business. They'd built a legacy, one that stood as a rebuke to the prejudice Danika had once faced. Their love had grown in tandem, a quiet fire that burned brighter with each shared challenge. Liam was her anchor, his steadiness a counterpoint to her intensity. Danika was his spark, her courage igniting his dreams. They'd faced boardroom battles, late-night coding marathons, and the weight of a world that sometimes resisted change. Yet in stolen glances and whispered promises, they'd found a rhythm that felt like destiny. Tonight, though, was different. The air held a charge, a secret Danika couldn't quite name. The restaurant was intimate, its walls adorned with ivy and fairy lights, its tables filled with couples lost in their own worlds. A pianist played softly, the notes weaving through the hum of conversation. Liam reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers, sending a shiver through her. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice low, intimate. Danika smiled, her heart fluttering. "You're not so bad yourself," she teased, noting the crisp lines of his suit, the way his tie matched her dress, a detail she knew wasn't accidental. They talked easily, their conversation a dance of laughter and reflection. Liam recounted a client meeting where Danika's demo had left executives speechless, her code unfolding like poetry on the screen. Danika shared a story from her childhood, coding her first game on a borrowed laptop, dreaming of a world where her ideas could soar. The weight of her past, the rejection, the rain-soaked night, felt distant now, a shadow banished by the light they'd created together. As dessert arrived, a delicate chocolate tart dusted with gold, Liam's demeanor shifted. His smile grew softer, his eyes more intense. He cleared his throat, a rare hint of nerves in his steady presence. Danika tilted her head, curious, sensing the moment's gravity. The pianist's melody slowed, as if the universe itself was leaning in. Liam stood, his chair scraping softly, and moved to her side. The restaurant hushed, eyes turning, drawn by the quiet electricity of the moment. He knelt and Danika's breath caught. In his hand was a small velvet box, its contents catching the lantern light. A ring, its diamond glinting like a star. "Danika Carter," he began, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "You walked into my life on a stormy night and changed everything. You saved my company, you challenged my heart, and you showed me what it means to fight for what's right. I want you beside me, not just in boardrooms or code, but in every moment, every dream. Will you marry me?" The words hung in the air, a vow wrapped in hope. Danika's eyes welled, tears of joy spilling over. She saw their journey in his gaze, the car in the rain, the Malware's defeat, the courtroom's triumph. She saw the man who'd believed in her when she doubted herself, who'd loved her fiercely through every storm. The restaurant seemed to vanish, leaving only them, their hearts beating as one. "Yes, Liam," she said, her voice trembling with certainty. "Yes, I'll marry you." The room erupted in applause, strangers cheering for a love they couldn't fully know. Liam slid the ring onto her finger, its weight a promise of forever. He stood, pulling her into his arms, and their kiss was a seal, a vow that needed no words. Danika laughed through her tears, her heart so full it seemed it might burst. Liam's arms were her home, his love her strength. They sat again, hands entwined, the world returning in a rush of clinking glasses and murmured congratulations. Liam's thumb traced circles on her palm, a quiet anchor. "We're going to build something incredible," he said, his eyes alight. "Not just CyberGuard, but a life, a family." Danika nodded, her vision blurring with new dreams. She saw a future where their children coded and laughed, where their company stood as a beacon of fairness, where love was the code that solved every problem. The night stretched on, filled with plans and promises. They spoke of CyberGuard's next steps, a scholarship program for underrepresented coders, a new platform to detect corporate sabotage. Danika's mind buzzed with ideas, her passion reignited by the ring on her finger. Liam listened, his pride palpable, his love a steady current beneath their words. The city outside pulsed with life, its lights a mirror to the hope in their hearts. As they left the restaurant hand in hand, the night air was cool, the stars piercing the urban glow. Danika glanced at Liam, her partner, her love, her future. The pain of her past was a faint echo, drowned by the symphony of their present. She'd walked through a storm and found not just shelter, but a home. Together they'd write a story that would echo beyond their years, a testament to love, resilience, and the power of two hearts beating as one. What an incredible journey for Danika and Liam, from a stormy night to a love that changed everything. What moved you most about their story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive, so hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash the like button to join our community. Thank you for being here, for feeling every moment with us. We can't wait to share more tales of courage and heart with you. Until next time, keep shining. See you soon.